Hello and a very warm welcome to this video. Now in this video we're going to start a brand new series on the channel called Fundamentals of QuickBooks, and in this first episode we're going to tackle one of the most important parts of QuickBooks Online, and that's the navigation. So let's roll the VT and make sure we know exactly how to get along with QuickBooks Online. Hello, my name is Aaron Patrick. I am a chartered accountant, a certified UK trainer with fancy new logo, that QuickBooks chap on the internet, head of accounts here at Bookkeeping, and also your friendly podcast who goes live each and every Monday morning, 8:30 AM for Ask the Accountant. Now in today's video, we're going to be looking at the very world of navigation. But before we get into navigation, let's first understand exactly what QuickBooks Online is. QuickBooks Online is ultimately a bookkeeping solution based directly in the cloud, which means it doesn't matter where you are in the world, as long as you've got an active internet connection, you can get access to your data through a laptop or even through the phone using a dedicated app, through an iPad. I've even done it in VR. But ultimately what it means is you're going to have access to the most important parts of your business anyway in the world, as long as you have that active internet connection. And you can have multiple people using it as well. Maybe that's multiple people in your team, or what we find here at Boffix so important is the fact that we, as the accountant, can go in and look after our clients and make sure that we have their best interest in hand. Now, QuickBooks Online. Let's have a look at the website. From here, you can see what the plans and pricing options are. Now, the plans and pricing is basically which version of QuickBooks and what sweeties and toys you want to have with it. You can start off at the very beginning, which is self-employed, which is a standalone product. So personally, I think it's only designed for the very, very smallest of businesses and anyone with no inclination of needing VAT whatsoever. Then when you go into the next one, Simple Start, you then have an option to have the full version of QuickBooks, but with the least amount of features. The best thing is though, you can go from Simple Start to Essentials, which is your next step up, Plus, Advanced, or you can even come back down from Plus, Advanced, Simple Start, and you can keep going backwards and forwards. As long as you go from this line here, then anything after this line, you can go up and down and upgrade and degrade. But anything below that line, you're kind of stuck on there with a migration plan due at some point, but not live at this time of recording. What features do you have though? Well, in all of them, you have the opportunity to do one of the most important things, which is add your bank account. In all of them, you can send invoices, and in all of them, you can record expenses. But basically, the more you go up the lines, the more extra features you have. So you can see here that as soon as I start going from Simple Start to Essentials, I can start tracking employee time. I can accept and make payments in different currencies. And as I start going up, I can start managing stock. I can start looking at projects. I can look at budgets. And if I go all the way to the advanced version, I just get a whole load of new features, which include batch invoicing, customized user permissions, automated workflows, reminders, and the list goes on. Now, we've done a whole video on looking at the different types, but ultimately you need to be making sure you're one of these four versions: Simple Start, Essentials, Plus, and Advanced. With that then, we can start our first lesson, which is navigation. Now, when it comes to navigation, we have to start off with the dashboard. I love the dashboard in QuickBooks Online. The dashboard is the place where you get to get that information taken straight to you. Over here, I can see how my bank accounts are doing. Now, this is demo data, so there's lots and lots of information here. Yours will be a lot less busy than this one. But ultimately, you can see how much I've got in my bank account at any one point, what the QuickBooks balance is, what my bank balance is in real life using real-time information, and when it was last updated. Clearly, I've got to get this updated pretty soon. Because as you can see here, my two bank balances and my in QuickBooks, my bank balance are the same. As I go through the rest of my dashboard, I can see a nice little profit and loss and how I'm doing, a breakdown of my expenses. I can see what invoices and what might be overdue, and I can go look at what apps are connected. All of this we're going to go in a lot more detail throughout the rest of the series, but for now, it's just really important that this dashboard is giving me information that I need to know. On the left hand side, I've also got the new button. So with the new button, at any point you can go and add a new transaction. And we're going to see these transactions throughout the series, but just how convenient is it that you press that new button and you can go to customer, supplies, team or other and start adding transactions in QuickBooks Online. We like it when it's nice and easy for things to do. The rest of the left-hand navigation is all about giving you our different modules. So for example, the transaction module is all about going into things like your bank statements and receipts and reconcile. Sales is where your customers are going to be, expenses is where your suppliers are going to be, and then the report section is where you're going to get all that wonderful reporting. We also have an option for projects, payroll if you want to do payroll, and there's a whole taxes section to making sure that you get the most out of QuickBooks Online. But the best thing about all this is I can use the menu button at the bottom and I can customize this menu to my heart's content. Move things around, take things away. I have the control and power to make sure that left-hand navigation is exactly how I need it to be, including the opportunity to put bookmarks in there. So that I can go through, maybe I want to be making sure that I go straight to my rules section, press save, means now under my bookmarks area, I can go straight to my rules at any point I need to. So that's the left-hand navigation. If you don't need to see the left-hand navigation, use this little mini hamburger button at the top here. Disappears the left-hand navigation. You get more real estate. You can see more of your data. On the right-hand side though, well, first of all, we have our own little area for our user. That's when we do things like make sure our email's correct, things like that. Next to it is our company cog. Now the company cog or settings button is so important to us. This is the area where we're going to go into QuickBooks and we're going to make some critical changes. For example, this is where accounts and settings are hidden. And this accounts and settings is where you can go and change all of the features in QuickBooks Online to make sure it's right for you and your business. It's also the place where manage users are. And manage users is important because when we go to manage users, that's when you get to set who can see the data and who can't. So we can see what users we have in, and included, we can see what accountants we have access to as well. To add a new user, dead straightforward, use the add user button, right hand side. You put your first name, last name and email in there, then choose what role they are, and you can look at what the role descriptions are just here. But ultimately, you're then going to give them an email address, send it over to them, they put a password in, and then depending on what role you give them, they will then be able to go in and see the data in QuickBooks Online. Again, did I mention it was cloud-based? That's why it's so straightforward, because then they just get access to QuickBooks at any point in time. Top right hand corner, we have our notification bell. That's going to let you know if anything new is happening in QuickBooks, anything you should be aware of. We've got our search bar. One thing I like about the search bar is that it's not just an opportunity for you to search for an item, which is always what a search bar is useful for, right? But actually, the thing that makes it even more powerful is the recent transactions. It's going to give you your 10 most recent transactions. So if you just put a transaction in and gone, did I put the right date for that one? It's going to be dead straightforward. You look, find that transaction, and if you need to, you can even click into it directly from here. It's going to take you to that transaction, and you can make that adjustment if you need to. And then there is the help bar. Help bar is really, really powerful. From here, you can go in and ask a question using the little search bar up here, and AI is going to try and help as much as it possibly can. Or use the contact us button to go in, say what your problem is. Like a question like this. I think QuickBooks is better than Xero. Oh, I best put an exclamation mark. And then as soon as you press the continue button, what will happen is it will give you some options. First of all, it's going to be looking through and finding options that maybe someone's already asked a question, taking direct to community, or it's going to give you the opportunity to chat with someone directly there. So you have the opportunity to talk to someone, and a nice little box will pop up and you can talk to a person there. Or you can have the option to have a callback. And when you do the callback option just here, that gives you the chance to be able to go and talk to someone on the phone. Well, for me, the best place to start with money in is using the new functionality button at the top left-hand corner. From new, you can click on the button there, and then you're going to continue down the customers area just here. Now, there's a lot of information here, so let's go line by line. The first one is invoice. Now, invoice is dead straightforward. For businesses who are looking to send an invoice out that they're going to get paid for a later time, this is perfect for you. So from here, you can choose a customer, either one of your existing customers, or let's just create a new customer from scratch. So I'm going to call him Bob. Now you can put as much information as you want, first name, last name, you can put all this information in. Realistically though, at this area, you want to be putting as much information on there that's going to be able to be on that invoice. So you want to put in the billing address. You're going to maybe want to put some notes there to help you. It's all about making sure that you can use this information for your best ability. And I would highly, highly always recommend putting an email in. So I'm going to do test@test.com. Now from here I press save. Now it will remember the billing address and info you put through. You then get to choose the date itself. Now you can either use a little calendar button or you can type the date in, whichever works for you. And it will generate a due date based on the terms. You can change the invoice date if you've got the options open by just going in and change it. So I'm going to do 1234 for my invoice date, invoice number. Now top up here you can have payment options built directly into QuickBooks, so you can make your life easier by accepting card payments via PayPal. But what really powerful is when the invoice is sent to a client, they press one button, press pay now, and they can deliver the money directly to you. It's brilliant. Or you can set up a direct debit so that you can use Go Cardless, which is a direct debit solution. It means you send that invoice out, and once it's all set up, it means the money is then going to be collected automatically without you worrying about it and deposited straight to your bank account. We love that feature. All right, everything else here we're not going to talk about now, but that is stuff for a more advanced video. And if you want that video, press the like button and we can talk about custom forming numbers, tracking numbers, location, class, and all that sort of stuff, but only if you use that comment button below. Now, first and foremost, product and service. This is what you've sold, and you can see here I've got loads of pre-made products and services. And what makes it easy means that I can then go and say that I want this Pokemon Japanese card here for Blastoise, and I could have already set what the price point was going to be, and the VAT number and everything else that goes with it. They can all be preset. Now, for you to create your own, well, it's really straightforward. You just start typing in what you want to sell. So I'm going to go start selling an apple. Now for me to start selling an apple, I type the word in and then I choose which one I want to do and say add new product service. And I choose what it's going to be. Now to keep things simple, we're just going to choose a service, but you have more advanced solutions if you go up a bit higher, which includes stock, non-stock and bundle. Service though, really straightforward. All I need to really worry about are my defaults. Where the income count's going to be. Do I want it just as sales or do I want it on its own separate item? That can be changed there. What's the default figure going to be? So let's say £250, and then what the VAT code's going to be as well. Save and close. Now from here I can change any of this information. I can put in maybe the different quantity. I can move it all around. I can go and add lines, clear lines, add subtotals, and because I'm using the settings button at the top here and I've turned on things like some complicated things like I've got in here regarding things like sales items and shipping and all that lot, I can change that there. Ultimately though, what I need to do now is send it over to the client. From the send functionality down the bottom here, I can either save and close, or I can save and send, or I can save and new. Save and close takes me back to where it was. Save and new would save it and give me a brand new one if I've got multiple ones to do. Save and send though, gives me an opportunity to press send. I can customize this to my heart's content, press send, and that's now gone over to that client. And the idea then is that now that client will have the opportunity to pay us. Now when they do pay us, I can either wait for it to hit my bank account and match it because that transaction is now live in QuickBooks, and when I've hit the money's come in, I can match it there. Or I can use my next item down, which is receive payment. So I've sent my invoice, I can now receive payment. Receive payment, basically if I say Bob paid me back, I can say Bob, I can tick what it is, say how much he's paid and maybe change it. So actually maybe he's only paid £500 at this point. But crucially, I just need to say what the date is and where it's paying into. Is it petty cash? Is it NatWest Bank? Is it any of these other bank accounts I've got in this account here? I could change all these through, say business bank account, press save and close, and that will mark it as done. And we'll see in a moment how that works when we go to our customer area. The new option next is estimate. Now estimate is when we're not 100% sure or we're trying to entice a client. So let's go back to Bob and let's say to Bob that we want to go and send an estimate this time that we're going to want to sell you Mickey Mouse, and we've got 1,000 of these to sell at £25 each for a whopping £25,000, and hopefully get the VAT right as well. The whole point of an estimate is that when I save it or save and send it to the client, I now have an option that I can wait and see if they've accepted it. So in the top right hand corner or left hand corner, I can say accepted, pending, closed, rejected. And over here, I can go and maybe create an invoice based on this particular one. Either way, it gives me a control where I can send an estimate out, see if the client likes it or doesn't like it, and then I can act for it going forward. Next new one is credit note. Now, credit note is basically the same as invoice, but in reverse. So basically we're saying here that actually Bob didn't want all of the stuff we've sent to them. Not a problem. I can select either a different bad debt or, well, he's only paid me 500, he still owed me another bit of money left. Well, what I can do is maybe do a bad debt. Maybe do it inclusive of VAT, which means it's going to work the VAT backwards for me, not add it on top. And maybe say that we are writing off £200 of it as a bad debt with the VAT being worked backwards. Press save and close. And we've agreed that with the client. That's what a credit note is for. New button. We've also got refund receipt just here. What about if we need to send some money back over to Bob? Dead straightforward. We can say, Bob, here's a refund receipt. Let's say that we want to refund him against some of the piglet face ones. It's £10. We want to refund it you. Press save and close. That means that when that refund comes in, so the expense in this case, right, comes in, it's automatically going to be accounted for you just to make your life easier. Next one though is delayed credit and delayed charge. Now, pretty much the same. So delayed credit, if I click into here, means that I'm going to say Bob, and I'm going to say there's a credit in there, and I'm going to delay it for now against the Japanese postage. I'm going to say it's £100. I'm going to see how that affects us in a moment. And then there's delayed charge. Now, delayed charge is, well, we've done something for them, but we want to include it in an invoice later. Not a problem. Well, I go in here and I say, actually, I've already just done an iPhone repair for you. I want to make sure that I don't forget to do that iPhone repair and charge for it. So in this case, it was £100. And next time I invoice you, I don't want to forget about it. I don't want to miss the fact I've done that iPhone repair. And the idea then is it's on file, ready for next time I invoice, and make sure I don't forget. And finally, in the new section, add customer. That's how we've already seen it. Instead of having to do it from there, I could go in, add the customer, put Bob's information in and go through from there. Now let's go to Bob and see what's happened here. So in the world of Bob, we have, the very first thing we did was send an invoice for £780. We then took a payment of £500, and you'll see now that the invoice is partially paid. If I go back into the invoice, I can see that it was undelivered because the email was incorrect. That's fine, but I can see as well at the moment we've got a partial payment. If I go and edit the invoice, top right hand corner, you can see that I've got a partial, still got a balance of £280 left. I've got that estimate out there of 25 grand. Well, we can decide if he wants to update the status, or I could mark it accepted. Ultimately, I can convert this into an invoice if I want to. Then I've got my credit note, £200, at the moment unapplied, but I can actually apply it against here. All I'm going to do is do receive payment. If I do receive payment, I can say that actually I've got a credit note there of £200. That's how much I've received, meaning that now if I go back to that invoice and I just look into it, I actually have a balance now of £80 left over to me because I've applied that credit note against it. Then we've got the refund that we allocated against him. So when I pay that £10 to the client, we can easily accept that on the bank account and match it accordingly, keeping things nice and clean. And then I've got my credit here, which basically means, and my charge here, credit and my charge just sat there waiting to be utilised. And what that means now, that if I press the new button and press invoice, right hand corner, I now have a new area popped up. I have the opportunity to bring in my estimate that we've created for them. So maybe he's now agreed on it. So that's that 25k coming in. Now, when I look to bring it in, I do have the option, do I want it all of it or some of it? I'm actually only going to do 10% of it now and copy to invoice. And then I can come back and do maybe another 10% later, or the full 90. I can bring that in at a different time. And I also got these charged. So there's that iPhone repair that we talked about. Let's bring that in. And then here's that £100 credit that I had there waiting to be brought in. And basically, the idea of using the linked items here is that all of these delayed charges and delayed credits and these estimates create what's called a linked invoice. And the idea there is I can see the audit trail of how all this was put together. At any point I can go in and sort it. So I can save that at any point. I've created a brand new invoice. I can wait for that to be paid. And the only other thing we haven't talked about is then sales receipt. And all the sales receipt is everything we've just learned. So all of that information can all apply to a sales receipt. Key difference is a sales receipt is something you've already received. So I'm going to go in, and this time round I'm going to say that I've got some design costs for this particular person. They've already paid me £250. I can use that fancy inclusive versus exclusive, and that means it's going to automatically record the VAT for me on what £250 is. All I need to do is be really careful of where the money's gone to. Let's say that he's actually given me in cash. I've already recorded it. It's against Bob still. So at that point then, a sales receipt is everything we learn, but instead of having to mark it as paid later, we already have received the money, therefore we just put it in as the paid figure as appropriate, just like that. What else have we got in the money in area? Well, products and services, that's where we can go and look at all of our stock items, make sure, and the service items, and make any additions to it. So we can go in and change maybe this default cost for it and everything else and where it's been posted to. Customers is where you can see a default your customers, including how much people may owe you and what estimates are out there, and how much overdue invoice is going to be. Invoice area where you can allocate your invoices and look at them. Also see every transaction from a sales point of view that's available to you. And finally, your overview page, which I like to see as a bit of a to-do list. Have you got everything set up? Are you got it set up so you can accept online card payments and accept direct debits? Have you got it set up that you have all of the information in place? Overview page gives you all of that there, and then gives you an opportunity if you come back on a regular basis to see how you're doing in your world of money in UK Trainer, and also that QuickBooks chap on the internet. Now, if you go through the back catalogue of my videos, you will notice that a lot of the times I keep talking about how important it is to get data into QuickBooks. Getting data into QuickBooks gives QuickBooks the opportunity to learn things. It means it can start to predict things, and the key is to get that data in there efficiently. Now, one of the big parts of that is your bank account. And it's so important to get that data in there. If you can get that bank account into QuickBooks efficiently, A, you're going to make sure that you've got it in there correctly, so there'll be no errors. And B, it's going to be much more time efficient for you. Your aim at the end of it is to come back to whatever bank balance you have in the bank at that point in time. You want to show that in QuickBooks. So instead of having to put individual transactions in it manually and having to go through transaction by transaction by transaction by transaction, the quickest way is to import that data in. And that's what we're going to look at today. How do we import that data? What options have we got? And how can we make it really easy for ourselves? So join me for this video to have a look exactly how you can make sure that you get your data into QuickBooks really efficiently. Let's have a look. First and foremost, let's have a look at our new banking area. Now, the banking area in QuickBooks has recently been updated, and there's lots of new features in there. Features that make it even more important that we get the data in there nice and easily. Because now we've got the option to group things. That means we've got the option to actually look at data in the group that it belongs to. And we can deal with that really quickly, really efficiently when we've got the data in there. Now, the most efficient way of getting the data in is just adding the bank account directly to QuickBooks. Let's have a look. Right hand corner, you'll notice there's an option here called Link Account. When I press Link Account, it brings me up which bank account I want to link. And I can pick which bank account and follow the on-screen instructions to make that connection. Now, due to the opening banking regulation, you need to make this connection once every 90 days, and you have to keep basically authorizing QuickBooks and your bank to talk to one another. So once you've made that connection, remember how easy and simple it was, and just repeat that every time. QuickBooks will also alert you if there's any issues. You can see on this bank account here, these ones are saying that everything's okay. This one here is telling me there's an issue and I need to look at. I click on the issue and it will then tell me exactly what my problem is just here. I can try pressing the update button and see if that will force it through, or I press the reconnect button and it will tell me how to reconnect my account. Notice how it said here, UK open banking regulation requires you to authorize your bank account every 90 days. And that's the issue we've got to just be aware of and make sure we've got that connected. Once it is connected though, the information will be updated automatically for us. As you can see here, this was done on the 2nd, this one was done on the 1st, giving me confidence that they've done correctly. So there we are, we've updated our bank account and made sure our data's been flowing through nicely. But how else do we get data in there? Well, the second most efficient way, and this is for times where you can't link your bank account for any reason. Maybe you've not got online access, or sometimes it's because you're looking for data that's not been brought in yet. And it could be because it's quite old data, maybe it's last year's data, something like that. Well, if that's the case, what you want to do is you want to jump over to your bank account, download the relevant file, then upload them into QuickBooks. And that's what we're going to show you how to do now. Each bank account's obviously going to be different to the way we log in. Then you find the bank account that you'll want to bring in. Find and see what type of transactions and date range and all that sort of stuff you need. And then you have the option to export to Excel. When you export to Excel, you basically get all these options. And the nice thing is QuickBooks can actually read most of these. So the Quicken 2001 onwards, it'll be able to read. So I could download that one. But the best way to do is just download a CSV file. That way QuickBooks can definitely read it. So let me do a CSV file of another account. So now if I go back to QuickBooks, what I'm going to use is I need to now upload those transactions. I'm going to use this arrow down here and say upload from file. I then get to browse. Notice that it says here, download transactions, and it tells you what formats that it can see. CSV, QFX, QBO, OFX, or TXT. Let's browse. Let's bring in that first one we downloaded, which was a QFO OFX file. So once the file's in, then all we do is press next. Because it's an OFX file, QuickBooks can recognize it pretty well, and it can then start actually allocating things for us. So we press next. And we're in. Simple as that. Now, if you do choose a CSV file, let's just upload that one as well. We need to actually go through and map the data. So we've got to say what the description is, which is found, and then we've got to say what's the debits and what's the credits. And press next. And next. And you can plot the data that. So it doesn't matter what type of file you download, you'll be able to get that file into QuickBooks. Now that's when you've got the ability to be able to extract the file directly online. But again, you need access to online services to be able to get to that point. What if you don't have access to that? What are your other options? Well, hopefully you can get access to at least the paper format. Now that can be a paper format as in it's a paper document or a PDF document. Either way, what we need to do now is get that into that PDF document. If we can get it to PDF, at least it's electronic, and at least that gives you the opportunity to put the data in there. Now, the PDF document that I've got in front of me, we need to get into QuickBooks. Problem is, we need to convert it into one of those formats I talked about before. So ideally CSV. So if you've got a full version of Adobe or something like that, you do normally have the option to convert PDF to other formats, including Excel. Now the problem is you're going to get varied results. Sometimes it'll export perfectly and there'll just be a couple of adjustments you need to make and you get it into QuickBooks. Other times, because of the way that the bank statement's been formatted, that the software just hasn't got the ability to be able to directly convert it. Do have a go at trying that method, but you will find that sometimes you can spend longer trying to adjust the final export, because remember, you're going to need to have that export into something that is at least readable in a CSV format. When you get it into that CSV format, at that point, I would just spend a little bit of time having a look at it, see if it looks readable, have a go and importing it in. If that spends too long for you, then start considering some of these options I'm about to bring up. Now, these are paid for options, but they're really competitive, and it just means that you're going to be able to get that data in nice and efficiently without having to spend all that time trying to amend a CSV file or an Excel file that's been exported from a PDF itself. So let's have a look at some of the options. One of the options we use quite a lot is auto entry. And the reason we like auto entry is there's a whole section dedicated to bank statements. And literally all you do is you press the upload button, you grab that file, you stick it into here, and then that will be converted for you. You even have the advantage of using your mobile phone if you need to, and you can take a photo of physical document and bring it in that way as well. Once you send it to auto entry, it takes a little bit of time, so you give itself like 24 hours, something like that. And then once you've got the notification back, you then have the ability to download the transaction, and you can download it as a processed transaction. So here the items come through. It's charged me for doing it, and what that means is now I have the ability to go into the transaction and I can actually get it exported to QuickBooks. It even splits it into all different files and date ranges for me. You have the option to download all these different options here. So there's a whole range of different software solutions that it's compatible with. And also you have the option to fast code directly to QuickBooks, which effectively means it sends it directly to QuickBooks for you. So it's really powerful, and you can then publish it to QuickBooks itself so that it goes in that way around. So auto entry is a really powerful solution, and one we use and we rely on a regular basis. So we would have no problems or qualms in actually recommending it. There are other options out there, and I feel free to have a look at those options and see how they work for you. But they're the ones that we can give a rubber stamp on to say that we're happy that they work. If you are looking to get auto entry, do go talk to our guys at Boffix. They can either do the work for you and charge you the same nominal fee, or they can give you access to auto entry and you can do it yourself. Whichever works for you, they're going to have a service that's going to work on your behalf. But just the ability to be able to publish directly to QuickBooks, in our opinion, is a reason why this is a really great way of getting that information in. And there you have it, ways in which to get bank data into QuickBooks. It's very much worthwhile investing in one way or another to get that data in. But more than anything, the easiest way is going to connect it directly to QuickBooks itself. Okay, so if you can see from our client that we've got on screen now, this is just a demo client, but as you can see, it's starting to come to shape, and we can see that we've actually got items sat in that bank account. To get to the banking section within QuickBooks couldn't be any simpler. Basically, we're going to go over to the banking section there, and we're going to have a look and see what's going on. Okay then, so what I want to do now is look and explain how the banking feature works in QuickBooks. Now, first of all, it's about getting data into the banking section, and there's two main ways to do that. The quickest and easiest way to get your banking data into QuickBooks is to connect your bank directly to QuickBooks itself. That means every time a transaction appears on QuickBooks, it's then going to go directly into QuickBooks itself. We're going to have a look how that works. So now in the banking section, on the right hand side, it's giving me two options. The first one is add account, and the other one is file upload. If I use the add account button here, it's going to give me an option now to have a look at the 8 most popular bank accounts at any point in time. Now there's way more than those 8 accounts that are showing there. As an example, if I start typing in NAT for nationwide, you'll notice that there's 1,410 results on the word NAT alone. So chances are the type of bank account or the bank account you're looking for is going to be accessible within QuickBooks. Even the most obscure bank accounts are there as well. Things like Coots, bank accounts like Coots are there. You've got the new ones like Revolut. Now to connect the bank account, it couldn't be any easier. If I was just going to use one of these bank accounts that are on the front screen, let's just choose NatWest for example. As soon as I click on it, it's going to tell you what that particular bank account needs and how you're going to get that data in. So the connection here is really straightforward. It's telling me here that basically it's going to ask me, am I okay to connect my NatWest to my QuickBooks Online? As soon as I go through, it says I've got consent for 90 days. That's due to the new open banking initiative. That means that we can only keep in a connection for 90 days at a time. But that's a security measure. That's in case you forget that it's actually been connected or anything like that. And it'll also tell you how it's going to gather details and what information is going to be needed. So all I need to do is press agree. Then it takes me directly to the NatWest one, where I will just log in as I would do normally. The hard and fast rule is if you can log in online, you'll be able to make a connection to QuickBooks itself. Once I have got that connection in though, basically what it's going to do is it's going to make sure that my data is brought in on a day-to-day basis. It's going to make sure I get my data on a day-to-day basis. So every time I incur a transaction in the real world, you'll notice then that transaction will appear into QuickBooks for me. Now, what if I can't make that connection? Well, I still have the ability to get the data into QuickBooks. That's where the file upload option comes in here. As soon as I click on file upload, it then gives me the option of how I want to get the data directly in. Literally, all I do is download the file from the bank account, press browse, find the file, and it will step me through how to get that data in. Now, it doesn't matter how you get your data into QuickBooks, you're still going to see the same view. So this view that I've got just here is basically the view of what's going on. And it's worthwhile us exploring this view a little bit further. The first part is this bank card. Now the idea of this bank card is to make sure that we've got everything in place. This is going to help you decide or help you see what data is being put into QuickBooks. Every time you add a bank account to QuickBooks, you're going to get a different bank card view. And each bank card view is going to show you particular information. For example here, it's given me a name. Now we decided that was the business bank as the name, but we could have called it whatever we wanted to. We also have the balance of the bank itself. If we connected an actual live bank account, that live balance would have been in there. And then we have what's actually in QuickBooks at this point. So within this demo data, we've already added information in there, and that's the amount we've got there. Now, ideally, in an ideal world, you want your bank balance you're in QuickBooks to be exactly the same figure. If those two are the same figures, then we know we've done well and we know we've got everything included as we should. We've got how long ago it was last updated, so in this case 5 hours ago, letting us know how much we can rely on that data. And then we also know how many transactions are still to be dealt with. If you learn nothing else from this video today, the most important thing you take away from you is that number 34 figure here. This 34 figure here represents how many transactions QuickBooks has seen, either from connecting a bank account or from bringing in the data from a CSV file. But there are 34 transactions that QuickBooks haven't yet put into QuickBooks itself. And it's really important we understand that. That is one of the key takeaways in how QuickBooks works. A lot of times people see that 34 and they think their transactions have already been dealt with. But you have to do something with those 34 transactions first before they appear in QuickBooks. As an example, if I was to run my VAT return now, or run a set of accounts, or look at a trial balance, I wouldn't expect those 34 transactions to be in there. One of the best ways people have explained it to me in the past is they've explained it as like a dead man's zone. It's not actually a place where the data actually is. What you do with those 34 transactions, and in this particular example here, if I was to look down this list of transactions here and I was to count them all up, they'd come to 34. And that's because we have 34 transactions sat in our For Review tab. Now, our For Review tab is basically the place where our transactions sit originally, and then we decide what to do with them next. And we get two options. We want to move our transactions from the For Review to either reviewed or to excluded. So we're either going to put the items in from For Review to the Review tab, hence saying that they're going into QuickBooks, or we're going to move them from the For Review tab and move them to the Excluded tab. And let's walk through how that actually works. So what happens if I need to exclude a transaction? Well, it's really straightforward. I scroll down, I find a transaction I'm not interested in. So in this case, I'm going to put it into date format. And when I look at my date format, these two transactions up here, although they've come through the bank account, that's pre when I last actually did my set of accounts. So if I add these now, I'm going to end up duplicating the items. They would have been dealt with as opening balances. So all I do is I tick the items I'm not interested in, batch actions, and it gives me an option there to exclude selected. Now keep an eye on that 34 because we expect that number to go down. So as I press exclude, that number jumps from 34 to 32, saying that I've now dealt with two of the transactions. And if I jump into my excluded tab, I now have, in this case, 3 transactions, saying that transactions that I'm not bringing into QuickBooks. What about if you want to move your transactions from For Review to Reviewed? Well, it's really straightforward because QuickBooks itself is already got some data in there. And effectively what you want to think about is which data you've brought in there that is brand new to QuickBooks. And in that case, we're going to class that as items we're going to add to QuickBooks, or an item that's already in QuickBooks and we just want to put a big tick next to it to say we've seen that's come through the bank account and it's been matched. So basically you want to either add your transactions into the reviewed section or you want to match your transactions into the reviewed section. And let's look at that now. In this case, let's talk about those matched transactions. You'll notice on this list that every so often I have a green box around the items. That's because it's basically telling me that those transactions are already there. And what it's doing is it's looking through the information and it's going, I think I know what to do with these. I've seen these transactions. Am I correct in assuming what to do with them? And just to prove matters, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate my screen. So if you notice on that list, you'll notice Vodafone was there. And that basically means that I can go in and match against those Vodafone transactions. So if I jump to my Vodafone supplier list, you'll notice there's 3 transactions there waiting to be paid. Now what QuickBooks is going to do is if I jump back into my banking section, it's asking me, And I even have an option up here for only recognised transactions. So let's get that list down to something more reasonable and look at the items it's found. And it's found these 3 Vodafone transactions here. 1, 2, 3. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each one of these and I'm going to match them individually. So I'm going to press match, match, and match. And effectively what that's done, if I go to my supplier page now and I refresh the transaction, notice at the moment they're all outstanding. As soon as I press refresh, now I've refreshed, it's actually gone through and it's matched those transactions for me. And now I have nothing overdue, nothing open with this particular supplier. And if I was to jump into any of these transactions, I have a lovely little audit trail, because over here on online banking matches, it's telling me what that transaction was. So that's matching a transaction that's already in QuickBooks. Sometimes though, when it comes to matching a transaction, you might need to force QuickBooks to look into it. I've got an example of this here, and that is on my bank. I have a deposit here of £66,900. Now, what you guys don't realise, and what it's not easy to show, is that actually I've got 66,900 outstanding in sales, but the difference is they're 2 different items. So when I click into the transaction, notice how it expands and it gives me more options. And we're going to cover those more options later. But when I'm in the add section, I also have the find match section. So if I click on find match, it's then going to have an OR moment, and it's going to have a look and see that actually, if it looked at 2 different transactions, it could add these together. And in this case, it says 66,900. It could be made up of 6,900 from this invoice of Alex Blue and 60,000 from this Print Edwin invoice there. And that's helping me go forward. So basically, it's already decided that those 2 look right, and all I need to do is press save. Now that transaction's been added to QuickBooks as well. As simple as that. You'll also notice that if I was to run a report for, say, aged debtors or anything like that, those 2 transactions have now been shown as paid, and I won't be looking to bring those or asking for those back. The next thing I want to look at now is, well, what about if you're looking at a transaction that you know is not in QuickBooks? So in my case, it's ones like this PC World here. Now with PC World, if I click into it, it's going to expand the transaction out. Now when it expands the transaction out, it's basically asking you for what information it needs to complete that transaction. In this case, it's really straightforward. It's basically asking you for the information you'll need if you're creating a brand new expense. As an example, if I was to go in and create a new expense now, and I went PC World. Now, if I effectively replicate that transaction and create that expense there and save and close. Now, when I look at those PC World transactions, it's now found that record and it wants to match against it. Because the expense was already there, it's now gone in and it said that I found that transaction for me, which is great. So I don't need to double count the transaction. I'm not worried about that. As soon as I press match, it then basically puts a stamp on that transaction to say it's happened. Now, if I just use this screen in its entirety and I add the screen from here, let's see what actually happens and what the difference is. So basically, when I click into the transaction, it's asking me, what do I want to add? Well, an expense sounds good to me. And it's asking me, do I want to put PC World? Yeah, that sounds fine. Category VAT. And all it's really missing is a tax code. All these other items that are around there are all if I want to add some extra complication to it. So classes and locations and everything like that, if they're there and you don't need them, you could just ignore them completely. Basically, what I'm going to do now is press the add button, and I've added that transaction directly to PC World. So if I was to go and bring up my PC World supplier, you'll notice I've got 2 transactions in there. And this is the big thing to understand about when you add a transaction from QuickBooks. You're not creating something completely different. If you remember, we created this £52.67. So I click into there, I can see exactly what I was created. It looks like a normal expense screen. At the top, I have the option to look at online banking matches, and you can see there's that transaction that came through the bank. This online banking matches is a great way of looking at an audit trail where you can see exactly what's going on. If I go and look at the one we added though from the bank account, the £33.99, you'll notice it looks exactly the same. All it's done is created that expense on your behalf. It's stopped the need for you to have to go in, create the expense and come back again. Again, you have that online banking matches there, which is effectively going to be your way of being able. Currently, we looked at how we can match a transaction, bring it into QuickBooks. We looked at how we can add a transaction and bring it into QuickBooks. Now for the rest of these transactions, it's all about trying to clear them up as effectively and efficiently as possible. You'll notice that I've actually gone through and I've put this in what's called description order. When I put it in description order, that's going to make it easy for me to go through and do these in sections. Now, in this particular case, I've actually got a rule in place for WH Smith, because WH Smith, I've already defined what I want to happen. Now, rules are really straightforward and we'll cover them in a different video, but effectively at the top here, there's a rules section. And these are the rules that have been defined for me. So here I've got WH Smith and Audi. And basically what I'm saying is, if I see a rule there, I'm more than happy to go in and accept those transactions. Same with those other rules at the bottom. I'll go through, batch actions, accept. Now I'm just going through the last transactions that I've got available. So the thing I'm going to look at now is HM Revenue Customs. It's already found that one. It saw me pay that off in my VAT section. So it's given me the option to match directly. The ones that are left though, I can actually be a bit savvy with. So this British Telecom one here, I know they're all related to telephone expenses. So all I can do, or what I can do, is use my batch actions option to modify all three of them at the same time. So if I jump into modify, I can say they're all British Telecom. I can give them all the same category of telephone. In this case, I'm even going to say they're landline. And I'm going to apply 20% against them. All I need to do now is press apply and add, and all three of those transactions have now been added to QuickBooks. Notice now I'm down to 8 transactions, £63,000 in QuickBooks itself. Now what I'm going to do is deal with these other expenses, but again I'm going to be a bit more savvy. Instead of going into each individual one, I know that BP, Shell and Tesco is all related to fuel. So why don't I use that batch actions option, change the category to motor running expenses, apply some 20%, apply and add, and they're added as quickly as that. As quick as that, I've added 6 transactions. I know they're all different suppliers, but because they're relating to the same thing, I can quickly go in and add them nice and straightforward. I've got 2 more left now. First one is cash banked. Well, if I click in my cash banked, all I need to do now is add a transfer to my petty cash. Notice how I'm basically dropping down from an add button to a transfer. If I use transfer instead of just add and put it to petty cash, it eliminates all the VAT issues, and also make sure that if I've got connected to the other side, it's going to add that correctly for me. So I can add that transaction. Finally then, on my screen, I've got PC World. Now the only reason I've left this one is because it's slightly more complicated, and that's because we've also bought something that's actually capital related. So there's some capital item in here and also some computer expenses as well. But it's really straightforward because if I click into the transaction, I get the option to split down the bottom. So if I split it, I then get to go in and I get to make sure that some of it's computer running costs, some of it computer additions. All I need to do then is split accordingly the 2 amounts. Save and add, and those 2 transactions have been added to QuickBooks nice and easy for me. But split them between the 2 that I would expect to see. And that's all that I've done. Basically, now that I've got to the all done section there, my bank account has finally been added, and all my transactions are either sat in the reviewed columns or in the excluded column. I've got nothing left in for review. I get a nice big tick. I got £62,000 in QuickBooks. Hopefully I've got a bank account balance at the same figure. So now I'm really happy. What I can also do is jump into the dashboard, and you'll see my dashboard's been updated as well. That's telling me the same figures. So as soon as I log in, it's going to prompt me, have I got something to do with my bank account? Is there something I need to keep up on top of? The most important thing and the way you get real-time information into QuickBooks is keeping that review tick there. That means all that data is going to the right place. That all means all that data has been dealt with. What I can also do in here is I can have a look at my petty cash. And you can see that's that bank transfer that I did, £285, which was basically the difference of what I had left in there, £300 and a £15 expense. And that's it. That is money in a nutshell. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Is there anything else in the money in section that you need to know more about? Now, most of the time, money in is designed for people who are sending invoices out or are trying to look at being able to record those sales receipts at a core level. But the other way of doing money in is by using commercial platforms and using the opportunity to use things like eBay or your website and stuff like that. Now, we're going to be covering that in a future series. So if you want to be listening to that in more detail, then don't forget to use the subscribe button on this channel. Make sure you give this video a like. Can put a comment below if there's anything else you would like to see in this particular series, because we're going to be tackling QuickBooks 101 on a regular basis. So my name has been Patrick. As always, this video has been an absolute pleasure to do for you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now. Hello and welcome to this new series. Hello and welcome to this video. 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 Right, let's get it set. Let's do this.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yes, I'm aware we go live every Monday.
The next generation is about everyone else that missed it.
Yeah. So current. All right, you've told us what you love about the industry, but what would you change about the industry?
Where do I start?
During that period of time, where did everyone turn to? Their accountant, right? Their advisor, their bookkeeper. And you all did phenomenal work for small business.